música y cine estuvieron muy unidos desde sus comienzos y paralelamente al desarrollo de las técnicas cinematográficas y la creación de una narrativa cinematográfica, la música tuvo que encontrar sus propios recursos para manifestarse. Hoy en día, el cine y la televisión se han convertido en los grandes vehículos de la música contemporánea. ¿Por qué en determinada película se emplea cierto tipo de música o unos instrumentos y orquestaciones específicas? ¿Por qué algunas escenas van acompañadas por música y otras no? ¿Qué puede añadir la música al significado de una escena, independientemente de reforzar su impacto emocional o asegurar la comunicación con el público? El cine admite la perfecta creación de poesía, visión y sueños. Esto no lo ha dicho un crítico, sino el músico Claude Debussy a comienzos del siglo XX. Esta industria ha proporcionado trabajo a cientos de compositores, orquestas, estudios de grabación, ingenieros de sonido y agentes. Muchos de ellos se han convertido en verdaderos protagonistas de la industria del entretenimiento. A lo largo de varios programas buscaremos demostrar cómo la música de cine impone un modo de representación determinado que condiciona poderosamente la lectura final de una película. Acompáñeme a escuchar el cine. El productor Jack Warner dijo en una ocasión que el cine es fantasía y que la fantasía necesita música. Desde los tiempos del cine mudo, la música fue un elemento indispensable para llenar el vacío que se provocaba en las salas de proyección. En principio, la música que acompañaba al cine mudo era un elemento funcional, donde en ningún momento se puede considerar como de rango artístico. Serían los compositores Max Steiner y Erich Korngold quienes definirían las normas para gran parte de los compositores de Hollywood y por imitación de casi todo el mundo durante varias décadas.
Just a few short years after the movies learned to talk, Kong had to roar. If Cooper and Schoedsack wanted audiences to empathize with their 18-inch tall leading man, then the use of music and sound effects would be a vital component to the film's success.
Without the contributions of Max Steiner and his wonderful musical score, and Murray Spivak and the sound effects that he provided, Kong wouldn't have the same impact.
Kong would have one of the greatest cinematic scores ever composed, courtesy of Austrian-born Maximilian Raoul Walter Steiner.
But Steiner was really the first person to write a complex symphonic score that was tied so directly to the pictures of the film. I guess that's, where his achievement in Kong is really notable in how themic and precisely he's writing his music to pictures. It's not simply a musical piece being played over the top of the images. He's weaving his music in and around the cuts of the film.
He understood the arc of Kong's character. When we first see him, we're scared to death, and that's very clear in Max's music. But gradually, over time, you see visually what's happening between Kong and Anne.
Using specific themes for each character, leitmotifs as they are called, formed a shape and a characterization for King Kong that you could not have in the same way in the silent era.
Kong has his own theme. It's 3 descending notes. Bum, bum, bum. Ann Darrow has her own theme. La, da, 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 written in 3/4 time, most of the time, and developed and varied so that it can be a romantic mood, or later on can be somewhat agitated if she's in jeopardy or danger.
Steiner's music sometimes functioned like sound effects.
He established not only character, but he established that all-important factor of pacing. When you have that 3-chord progression that defines the main title, it's evoked throughout the film for Kong, but it's also a downward progression that foretells of his doom.
To build a raft to float him to the ship where the whole world will pay to see this.
Kong climbs the building at the end, and you have the music taking him up and up and up, and I think the music goes up and up and up in tone as he gets to the top. then there's a moment where everything stops. Toward the end of the sequence, the sound effects kind of fade off and the planes are still heard circling, but then the music creeps in.
It's Steiner's music that reminds us that in fact he has a heart, he has a soul. So that by the time those airplanes are attacking, while he's atop the building and he's shielding Anne, we hate those planes.
The music is just helping you say goodbye to Kong, and there's that whole, you're almost in tears because of the way it's set up.
We're devastated by the death of Kong because by that time we understand him. And it's Steiner's music that has moved us in that direction. So that by the time the end of the film comes, we've really felt something for this character that amazingly was just a special effect.
Well, Denham, the airplane's got him. Oh, no. It wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast. Beauty killed the beast.
Desde una perspectiva artística, durante los inicios del cine sonoro, el compositor debió superar problemas técnicos, integrar el discurso musical por medio de motivos que se repetían o hicieran referencias a otros momentos en la historia. Fue el principal reto de los compositores que llegaron principalmente de Europa con la idea de descubrir las posibilidades expresivas del nuevo medio.
Who is this? This Sir Robin of Locksley, Your Highness. Ah!
It's already like the history of music and cinema and dramatic music is all like encapsulated in Warner Brothers.
At that time at Warner's, Max Steiner had joined the staff of composers, and he was the workhorse of Warner Brothers. He went from picture to picture. So he was considered one of the great composers of motion picture scores. So Max was kind of put down as the guy who was going to score this. But then they thought, wait a minute, we're going all out. Let's get Erich Wolfgang Korngold. He wrote a marvelous score, and it's one of the great scores. He conducted his own music, obviously. His sense of timing was superb.
Sometimes, in fact, he chose the key of the accompanimental music based on the key of the speaking words of the actor. See, I'm talking right now, and if I just slow down, then that is the note I'm talking on, and that would be the key that Korngold would accompany me in right now. You see, and no one ever would have thought in those terms. He was telling stories. They were for him operas without singers.
I'm tired.
What? After a nice, refreshing sleep in the greenwood?
I pulled 7 acorns out of my ribs.
Lovely fresh air.
My teeth ache with chattering.
Nightingales singing.
An owl hooting in my ear all night.
Hooting? He was singing it asleep.
It is some of the most dazzlingly brilliant music ever written. But the scene in which Korngold shows something unprecedented is the so-called love music. The love music accompanies a scene in which Olivia de Havilland and Errol Flynn are talking. And they're talking about war. They are falling in love. There is not one love word mentioned in this scene, but because Korngold accompanies it, not with music of sadness, but the most exquisite love music, that he is doing something that could never have been done in an opera, which is that there's a total subtext, and that subtext is given to us in the music.
I do begin to see a little now.
You do, then. That's reward enough.
El gran aporte de la música a la película Robin Hood se resumen en las palabras del compositor David Raksin cuando señaló: "Me pregunto si Errol Flynn hubiera sido tan valiente sin la música de Erich Kongol cubriéndole las espaldas". John Williams es un compositor que ha continuado la tradición clásica de la era dorada de la música cinematográfica. Actualmente es una de las figuras más reconocidas en este campo.
Since I think I have to do it once more, it takes 2 minutes, we'll play it and I'll find out what's wrong, say the right thing to them.
I got to know and work with Johnny Williams on Star Wars because of Steven, who had recommended him from Jaws, and you know, it was great. You know, it was that's the most fun part of making a movie for me, because you don't have to do anything, you just sit back and listen, and it's all. And with Johnny, it's just fantastic.
I've been very fortunate to work with both George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, because in the case of both of those gentlemen, they are interested in music and use it in a very theatrical way that gives the music an opportunity to project itself and gives me an opportunity to write in a thematic way that wouldn't be possible in all kinds of films.
First hitch is too heavy.
Too heavy.
Yeah. Let me just react to what we've heard.
John, you know, he'd actually written 2 Raiders themes. He had written, play that for me, which I freaked out over. I loved it so much. Then he said, and here's another possible Raiders score, Raiders main theme, and he played. And so he had 2 choices, and I think my only input was to say, can't you use both? And he did. He made the latter the bridge, and he made the former the main theme.
That's a perfect example of the kind of collaboration that we have done with these things. Interesting about that, a very simple little sequence of notes, but I spend more time on those little bits of musical grammar to get them just right so that they seem inevitable, seem like they've always been there. They're so simple, and I don't know how many permutations I will go through with a 6-note motif like that, 1 note down, 1 note up, and spend a lot of time on these little simplicities, which are often the hardest things to capture, I think, for anybody. We go to great lengths to frighten the audience and use sometimes advanced orchestral techniques, atonal music, which would be more akin to contemporary concert music, Bartok and others. And people, if they heard the music without the film, might be shocked by it. But for me and for the orchestra also, it's a pretty exciting challenge to do, to be still on the right pace with what we see and hear and feel. So those things are terrific fun to do. The role of the orchestra at the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark film is a complicated one, because the music has to perhaps lure us into something that's sonically that's going to say this is going to be a beautiful experience, and then torture it and turn it around with the sound effects into something that could be quite terrifying. It's something that we would do in opera. It's part of the grammar and part of the technique of a composer and an orchestrator's tools to manipulate sound in that way, to lure us into one place and then deliver something else in the process. The end of Raiders of the Lost Ark is a very good example of that kind of sonic transformation. In the case of the 3 Indiana Jones films, the experience for me was very much like the experience of doing the Star Wars series, in the sense that one seemed to be the natural continuation of the other, and it's sort of like riding a bicycle. I didn't have to relearn how to do it. I begin to work, and within an hour or 2 I was back into the rhythm and into the spirit of the piece somehow.
Nice try, Lao She! Goodbye, Dr. Jones.
Also, we have the hero's theme, which is common to all three films, so the starting point is always enhanced by having a given musical subject from an earlier film.
Temple of Doom was exactly what George wanted. You know, dark and strange with all the choral, the dark male chorus, with all the stuff happening inside the actual Temple of Doom itself. When it came time for John to write the music for it, Last Crusade, John said, you know, this is a father-son story, so I'm going to write music that might be more appropriate for a less action-oriented picture about a father and a son. So he did very intimate, subtle themes for the indie-father relationship. Yeah, perfect time for that. I thought at first that could be a bit earlier, but that's fine.
You like that between them?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a reinstatement of his theme.
It takes attention away from the hands.
It's all right. That's all right. Yeah. This is a great score. This for me is my favorite of all three Raiders.
Me too.
Easily my favorite of all three Raiders. You know, the one with the, I think it's the deepest score, and it's the most evocative of relationship.
I think I like it.
There's a relationship in it.
Good. 36 wins, little tenuto tongue every eighth note.
I was talking the other day about the beginning of The Last Crusade, where we have Indiana Jones as a teenager. And I was thinking about this thing, and I think that sequence is actually about 4 minutes, because I've recently looked at it musically. And it's got, in that 4 minutes I counted, it's like 55 musical sync points. And what strikes me about that sequence also is that we're moving all the time. We're moving on the horse, moving in the car, moving on the train. All this action is taking place as we're traveling. And all the result of some writer's wacky imagination. Well, we'll have a train with snakes, you know, in the first 2 minutes. And that's the whole spirit of all those films. But the score is probably very close to being 2 hours. The orchestra's playing pretty much all the time, which is wonderful for the music. We have an opportunity where a film will hold that much music, not drown in the process, you know. I haven't ever measured it out, but I know it's quite a few notes.
Let's play against the dialogue. It's very sparse. It's great for him. It's just Sean. That'll clear Sean.
Well, I hear rumors that there will be an Indiana Jones 4. I hope it's going to happen. It would be wonderful because it would be an opportunity to take another romp through the imaginations of George and Stephen, particularly, and their writers. But for me, the experience of doing the trilogy of Indiana Jones has been an important one in the overall stretch of what I've done in film. It was a joyous experience doing this, always is with George and Stephen. And the fact that the music, that I can still play it in concerts and that other people still will do that from time to time, is enormously gratifying to me, that people remember it on its musical leg, so to speak, which is, I have to say, the result of the happy coincidence that people remember these films so well. They've been a very important experience for me, and I look forward very much to revisiting all of this in Indiana Jones 4. I think it'll be a very exciting thing to do, and a very pleasurable one, certainly.
La mayoría de los compositores de hoy, tanto en Asia, Europa o América, están escribiendo música polifónica a gran escala. Demuestra que una partitura grandiosa también es sinónimo en la mente de muchos productores de película de enorme impacto. Aunque el propósito de la música de cine es que no sea apreciada por sí misma, su mayor utilidad consiste en intervenir sin que el público realice un verdadero acto consciente de percepción.